BenFlyingRetro, and I'm embarking on a quest to purchase every classic GI Joe comic from the original 80s and 90s Marvel run.
Warning.
Hunting down individual issues from every corner of the globe in whatever order the universe decides to give me. Join me and my pal Steve every week as we discuss my latest find. Welcome to Chasing Joe. Chasing Joe. Whoa, it's Wacky Inflatable Tube Man. I'm BenFlyingRetro. It's Chasing Joe. It's episode 30. We made it. We did what everyone said couldn't be done. We got to 30 episodes. It's somewhat of an anniversary, S-Jubs. How the devil are you? You look tanned. You're sort of tan Stewie.
If you say so.
Family Guy reference.
Wild Man of Borneo, maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm letting my beard grow back.
Yeah, so you have a beard. You have the ability to grow a beard. I don't have that. So if I sneeze, that's shaving for me. It just fluffs off.
Well, you save on razors, my friend. Let me tell you.
What scam that is. Absolute scam. What about Dollar Shave Club? Isn't that a thing? What's that?
You know what I found works the best, particularly for a beard like mine, is the ultra cheapo, like single disposable, like straight razors.
Yeah, that old school, like a dad from the 50s.
Totally. Yeah.
What's it
in
in Predator? Is it Mac? He's just always just shaving for kind of like a tick. He's just doing it. He doesn't even need to.
Totally. Yeah.
And then he
disposable Bic, like blue razors.
I think they did that for real. I don't think there's any rubber razors there. I think he was like, no, I've got this.
Totes.
Yeah. So man. If you shave in the morning first thing, are you a 5 o'clock shadow kind of guy? Is that how thick it is?
I'm a 9 o'clock shadow, dude. I am the missing link.
Wow.
I could be clean shaven and I would still have kind of a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
I would look like Heavy Metal's figure. It's debatable where I'm from. Like, is that actually grease or dust or whatever? Or is it actually he's just got a very, very dark beard and it's always omnipresent?
It's omnipresent, just like this show. Well, look, shall we get into it? We got a show to do. Last episode, we went off on tangents. We did a whole 15-minute bonus MCU episode at the end. Well,
you're welcome, listeners. I know you came here for the GI Joe, but stick around for the Marvel.
What can I say except you're welcome? I'm very theatrical right now. I got
very
kids
Disney.
that they just love Moana, Frozen, and the songs they just go in, and car journeys, Scouts.
Ben, focus. You're doing it again.
Oh, sorry. Look, I'm holding it. I'm holding it. I've got an idea for a new Insta show, an Insta series that I'm working on. Let's just leave it at that.
Ooh,
okay.
You're in for a treat.
More BenFlyingRetro. Ugh, yawn. Jog on. Right, so look. Episode 30. And 30 years and 5 months ago was October the 18th, 1994. After 12 years of Marvel putting out ARA, all good things must come to an end. Due to dwindling sales and a soon-to-be-cancelled toy line, Larry Hama and Marvel decided to turn and close the final page on GI Joe, A Real American Hero. Welcome to issue 155. There it is. Wow.
It occurs to me, Ben, that we are covering a lot of milestone issues in a very short span of time. We've done issue 1. We've done issue 50. We've done special missions 0 and 1. We're now doing 155. What does that leave?
The gods. That's the gods.
Yeah.
And hey, whoa.
155.
Speaking of gods, Godfrey, Jim Godfrey A private sale. Private sale. What do you think? What sort of deal did Jim give me? This is a pricey meatball. So I would say these usually shift for £100 plus. £100 seems to be the base, the floor for a good version.
And it does look good. My goodness.
It is good. It's slightly worn, but Jim thought those prices were ridiculous, so he did give me a deal. But what do you think?
Jim is a man known for his generosity. I'm glad you guys did strike a deal because, you can't just let this man give it to you. I don't know, 50 quid?
Woo! He's done it, ladies and gentlemen. He got it on the nose.
Well, a nice
Cha-ching!
round number for two fine gentlemen coming to an accord on a very important book. Okay.
Very important book. So at episode 30, that's bumped my running total up somewhat to £175.67, 230 USD. So I've got 30 books, 8 donations. I've spent 175 shekels. That's where we are at episode 30. But look, I don't even know where to start with talking about this thing. But we can't talk about a comic until we have been engrossed in the cultural landscape of October 19th, 1994. Time circuits. Goddamn time machine on. Flux capacitor. Fluxing. It's time to go back.
I think the DeLorean was scrap metal on some railway tracks by 1994, but okay.
That's true. Oh, I'm so here for part 3. Speaking of movies, if you stumbled into the Megaplex, you would have watched that weekend Stargate. Thinking Man sci-fi. Very good film. Kurt Russell. Egypt. I don't know. Were you a fan?
Absolutely. Hugely influential.
Man. What was the TV show? SG-1?
SG-1. Yep.
Very good show. Monster of the Week. Cool. Anyway, Pulp Fiction was out, and Sylvester Stallone in The Specialist. Boys to Men were top of the charts. PC gamers rejoiced that weekend as Doom 2 was released. But if you were still on console that weekend, you could have picked up Sonic and Knuckles for your Genesis or Sega Mega Drive. If you were still hitting up arcades, you were certainly playing Daytona USA. Daytona! What a game that was. Look, if you were crying into your soup because you wander into the comic shop just expecting to pick up issue 155, okay, let's see what's going on, and then you find out it's the final issue, you could have also picked up Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, without any sign of being cancelled, issue 381, featuring the Acolytes. And then if you stumbled into the toy shop, I don't know if you would have still found Joe's. You probably would have. But you would have been drowning in Power Rangers. It was the 90s. Joe was out. High school Power Ranger kids were in. And that is the cultural landscape. I've got to smell this thing. Okay.
You do. Crack it, sucker.
Crack it.
Last time, didn't Jim's smell like bandages? World War II bandages.
It was World War II, yeah. Because of all my toing and froing in my time machine, every now and again I do go back to medical hospitals from World War II. Ooh, this is smells like wood, like teak. You know teak?
Ah, well,
like
would
a
I be
wood
giving
oil.
too much away? Jim is a carpenter by trade.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No.
Man, I've got a good snout. That is... It smells like teak.
lovely.
Maybe Jim in his garage is like sanding down a nice piece of furniture, like an armchair for the porch. And he's got his 155, you know.
He'll do you a deal on comic books and bespoke wooden furniture as well.
It also smells a little bit of sadness as well in there.
Well, yes. I think everyone's most vivid association with 155 is sadness, that it is the lost.
So before
no one saw it coming.
That's how I want to. That's how I want to start. So before we get into the weeds of the actual cover, for you personally, what was your first exposure to 155?
Bought on the newsstand.
That is joyous.
Is it? It was
the fact that you were there though. Wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was about my 5th or 6th GI Joe book that I ever bought.
Yeah.
And to read the words, "This is it, the final issue of GI Joe," came as a big shock. I was like, I've just discovered the comic book and it's over?
Yeah, so you'd discovered it first through buying the odd issue, or were you actually 150, 151 and you started actually collecting?
It was piecemeal, and the very first issue that I was given was my brother had bought it for me from Cape Town's one and only comic book shop, gave it to me after a rugby match, and that was like, wow, my favorite toy line has a comic book as well?
Surely you had a couple of months where you got like 153, 154, and you actually found...
Nothing sequential. Just
really?
As when I found Ben, I was 8 years old. I didn't know how this thing worked. You
didn't know how it worked, but the where you got this from, it wasn't as if you were in that shop a month before and picked up 154.
I was on family vacation. It was December of 1994, and I walked into CNA, Central News Agents, which is the sort of big chain, in a town called George.
Oh, you got it in December?
Yeah. It was still languishing on shelves.
Yeah. I was like, no wonder this got cancelled.
Or maybe it had just come to us. I mean, everything was slightly delayed in getting to South Africa.
Yeah.
We were just at the tail end of the international boycotts. We'd only just become a democracy in 1994. So things were opening up. Anyway.
Well, for me, it was like a Saturday, midday. My brother was having his French onion soup. I was having my Heinz tomato soup.
Can I guess that Chief showed up on his bicycle, right?
Showed up on his bicycle with his rucksack. He comes in, slaps it down in the table. He said, "It's over. It's done. This is it. This is the end." And I looked at it, and I was shocked. Yeah, I was confused. I think I'd dropped off the comic a little bit by then. I think I stopped at 149 for some reason. I don't know what that reason was. Probably because I couldn't get lifts to the comic shop. You know what it's like.
Floppy tongue.
Okay, we're still not going to talk about the cover. You're right. So this is a total shock. This isn't the end of an arc. This wasn't something that they were planning. Do you know a little bit about the history of when Larry got the nod that it was going to be ending, or do you think he felt that it was coming to an end? With the issues that had come before being quite sort of scattershot.
By process of elimination, I think those were fill-in issues to perhaps give him time to author his final issue.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess he had maybe a month or 2 months notice to kind of pull that together.
Yeah,
man. I don't know. I don't have any personal anecdotes around that time. Just
okay. Well, look, let's finally get into this cover, and look. Well, it's certainly the 90s because these guys are yoked up sad Joes. Shipwreck wins for chest, so he is benching more than anyone. I mean, Shipwreck has never been drawn that big in his life.
Swole, baby.
They are like, I mean, Scarlet and Snake Eyes, they look like superheroes. It's the 90s, baby. There's bulging abs, there's broad shoulders.
Scarlet's giving Starfire a run for her money with that enormous mane of red hair.
Yeah, like Phoenix or Jean Grey. She looks like she could easily be an X-Man lady.
And quick kick's not looking too bad for a dead guy.
Yeah, I know. Everyone always mentions that. They brought back quick. I mean, with the roster, what do you do with this cover? I don't hate the cover. I don't really know how I feel about the cover. The cover is overshadowed by the fact that it is 155 and it's the last issue. I mean, it's a poignant scene with the folding of the flag, but I mean, it's very 90s, that's for sure.
Roadblock didn't even bother with a shirt. It's like him and Quick Kick. Oh, they've got the same fashion sense. Just a sash.
I tell you what I do like. I like the scratchy sort of shadows that they've given everyone. Yeah. That's quite cool. How do you feel about this cover, S-Jubs? How do you feel about it visually, and how do you think it works as a cover? Fitting?
Yeah, I guess they had to. I mean, this same kind of scene has been handled a number of times. Sort of the bearing of the arms or the colors in the books subsequent to this, the continuation from IDW. Anytime they've had a kind of a funeral service, I feel like the art chores have been more apt. I mean, this kind of high angle down on the flag, I feel like, maybe all the Joes saluting a flag, but in keeping with the events of the issue, you had to have this. They have to take the flag down from the flagpole. This isn't. The base is being retired, and so I guess this is. Yeah, I've never really thought about it, Ben. To be honest,
I know. It's not really that kind of sort of cover that you spend much time thinking about, because it's.
And similarly, the interior art is something that I don't also think about too much. The power of this issue is all in the prose, in the written word. Larry has very carefully weighted quite a think piece with his 155, a statement piece about war is hell. Being a soldier is not glamorous. It's not heroic or honorable. You're going to see some hard shit, but you're also going to see the very best that humanity has to offer. So those messages resonate a lot more than the art, and we'll have a lot more.
When you picked this issue up, did you just instantly read, "This is it, the final issue of GI Joe," or did you miss that and just assume by looking at the cover, like, "Oh, hang on, this looks a bit final"?
This is 31 years ago now. I'd like to think,
because it could be a funeral, couldn't it? It could be. Doesn't necessarily have to be the last issue. It's really that tagline that tells you that it is.
I think I had disbelief right the way through until reading Larry Hama's epilogue. He does a little write up at the end.
I love his. Well, his eulogy is my favorite part of the issue.
Right.
For me, personally. Right. Well, let's crack into the issue. Let's open it up. Do you want to give a synopsis? You kind of did one, but, you can probably do another one.
So, Sean Collins, the son, or not son, of Crimson Guardsman Wade Collins, who was on Snake Eyes and Stalker and Storm Shadow's LRRP team in Vietnam. This adopted son of his wants to enlist. And Wade's like, whoa, don't rush into anything, boy. Being a soldier isn't all it's cracked up to be. And you know who you should write to? If you're not going to take my word for it, write to Snake Eyes. Write to my buddy. He'll tell you what's up. So Sean writes into the pit in Utah and gets a response. And we see Snake Eyes' written word. We see his mind. We see the scripting is by him, and he writes back to Sean, and it's left to the reader's imagination what becomes of young Sean Collins. Does he choose to enlist anyway, in spite of all he's heard and read? Does he choose to just become a civilian and try to enjoy his life in a scary world?
I think the letter scared the living daylights out of him, because at the beginning he's absolutely jonesing to sign up, and then he's like, do you know what? I think I'm going to think on this a little bit.
Well, let's drill down onto that, because that's the sense that you get, right, Ben? That he's like reticent now to sign up.
Snake Eyes paints one picture for the entire letter, and then kind of switches it up with one bit where he does say some positive stuff at the very end. But for me, the whole issue really is the Snake Eyes letter back. So we get the dream sequence at the beginning, and then we get the letter to the pit, and then we get some nice scenes of them boxing up and kind of shutting down the pit. And I actually like that, because GI Joe is a big unit with a lot of names, and it's like, God, you want to spend some of this issue with the Joes. So I quite enjoy those bits. But then we get into Snake Eyes' letter, and he paints a pretty bleak and graphic tale of life as a soldier and what war is like. And as I was reading it last night, I kept thinking, back in the day, of all the ways you can end something, and I was sort of having a what if moment, and I was sort of trying to think of other ways you could do a 155, and does this satisfy me? And I'm kind of half in and half out. I almost think that this would have been a good 154, and then I don't know, you could have had something more nostalgic and had Cobra in there and had a big battle and kind of had a more that kind of a crescendo. But the poignancy of this is quite touching for sure. But it is a bit of a downer, really. Not only are you sad that it's 155, but it's a pretty sad issue, and you kind of finish it and you're like, that's it. That's the end. That's how they chose to do it. Credit to
I think
to
doing
Larry,
it any other way, doing it any other way would be pretty twee and saccharine. And let's not overlook the fact that, like, as an author, Larry Hama felt some degree of responsibility for the kind of message his book put out. Because I think by this point in time, he had received plenty of correspondence from people who had enlisted for a number of reasons, but they cited him and his book and his presentation of the Joes as one of them. And what does that do to an author's head? He's like, have I sent a whole bunch of boys who'd otherwise have not enlisted off to serve in their nation's army, potentially be put in harm's way? Should I not go out with a more thoughtful, like, punctuation of maybe a cautionary tale that, like, if you're signing up for all the glorious reasons, let me tell you something, a lot of it is interminable periods of boredom punctuated by brief flurries of horror. I mean, that is a quote that Snake Eyes pulls out. It's uncredited because it's not attributed to any one person. It's just one of those quotes that perhaps originated around World War One, where it was very true of soldiering, that a lot of it was interminable amounts of boredom and then brief flurries of complete total terror. Like, it's weighty stuff.
It's a heavy issue. But I did find myself
tie-in book. How can you like harmonize these two concepts, like toys and this kind of storytelling?
It operates on its own as a cautionary tale. But what I was thinking was, as I was reading Snake Eyes' letter and the images that go with it, it doesn't necessarily feel like that's the book that you've been reading for 154 issues. That's more of like that's more of a Vietnam book or a war book with how gruesome it is. But Look, Larry felt the need to do this, and he had, after all those issues, he had absolutely every right to do this, and probably felt like it was something that he wanted to get off his chest. Should we just look at each letter quickly? Because there's the writing in this is fabulous. There's a great bit that struck me. What's the quote I've got here? Oh, yeah. What's wrong with wanting a higher glory than personal wealth? I love that, where they're kind of arguing back and forth.
Oh, and, this is Sean saying...
he's choosing. He wants glory. He doesn't want money or wealth or to conform like that. Yeah, by the way, though, I don't really like the cursive creative choice. It's just not needed. I get that he's writing a letter. I mean, look, I'm 43. I can barely read that, dude. Honestly, I struggled last night, and it's so great when you get to Snake Eyes' one. It's like, lovely.
Easy on the eyes. Well, that's the reason
I can drink
why
this in.
Comic book lettering is all caps, because cursive and using lower caps has this tendency of closing up on you and just looking too scrawly.
And another one of my favorite bits from Snake Eyes. You are one crazy, tightly wound, ultra wacko psycho killer who desperately needs the strict discipline of a martial arts environment to call you out and keep the devils in check. My God.
Speaking about his sword brother Tommy.
That is incredible. But all of that boredom and all of that, they're all, you are tightly wound, And you're a trained goddamn killer. And that the discipline of being anchored to a martial art. And martial arts are all about control and discipline to keep the devils in check. I think that's so good. Yeah.
It gives
what
you
sticks
insight
out to you?
To Storm Shadow that must have always existed, but perhaps I certainly needed to get it spelled out to me, because Storm Shadow's a cool ninja figure, but no, actually he's so good at his job, which is killing, that in order to keep him from dropping off the deep end into a permanent 1,000-yard stare, from just being so bloody shell-shocked, PTSD. He needs the ultra tight-knit focus of like heavy martial arts devotion. Yeah, no, it's incredible, man.
Yeah. How do you feel about the uptick section of the letter when he starts dealing with GI Joe? I think this is where you want different art, I think.
How do you mean? Which of the uptick section where they
the uptick section? So if you're going to be a soldier, don't expect to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And then the selfless bravery, compassion, honor, dignity in the face of sure death. And then he talks about how lucky he was to serve with the men and women, and and the salutes, the back to the folding of the flag, a little nod to Scarlet. I suppose. Yeah, you're very aware by then of you're coming to the end, and you're nervous. You're like, oh my goodness, it's ending. How's he going to do it? And it's just a sort of symbolic deactivated United States military base. No trespassing. Yeah.
I have on occasion thought I'd love to see 155 in the hands of a more perhaps classic G.I. Joe artist.
For sure. I think so.
Trimpy, perhaps. Any of those guys. Russ Heath, when he was still alive, and Trimpy. MD Bright's another one.
I want that to look different. I want possibly different Joes on there, and I don't know. Yeah.
But it is a book of its time, of the mid-90s. Sure. Phil Gozier, he wrote into the book in this final issue saying, I just moved to New York. Now the book's cancelled. How am I supposed to pay for my apartment? Like it's a shame that he came in so late into the run. He was just getting to his straps.
I mean, look,
I find the art is fine. The art is fine for me.
Yeah, no, it is fine. It is fine. But I've always liked what you've said about maybe having a more classic look would be more fitting for the last issue. But look, it was a book of its time, and it was the 90s. Expect to see the worst that humanity has to offer, but then also expect to see the best that humanity is offer. You're going to see it all in the army, S-Jubs.
Now, coming back to the point that I was going to make about this being a cautionary tale, you feel a strong compulsion to not enlist based on this book. I felt the same way. It is addressed to Sean Collins, however, and it's interesting to note that in not one but two distinct, like, alternate realities of G.I. Joe, he enlists in the army in both of them. I should say he enlists in the Marines in one, but basically, yeah, he has taken Snake Eyes' words, and they've actually spurred him on to seek out that calling.
I was going to say, how often in your life, though, do you change your mind, and are you influenced by someone else? Like, you could sit down and read that letter, but I think once you've slept on it and a few days has gone by, I think that if he was already thinking of enlisting, I think he absolutely does enlist. And you can still take things from those letter, but I think he absolutely still enlists. But maybe in a kind of more, I don't know, in a different way. He's got a bit more knowledge now, and it's not so much about glory. But yeah. Should we talk about Harry's eulogy? That's my favourite part of the book.
Or Larry's.
Huh?
Harry Lama, Larry Hama.
I said Larry!
You sure did. Check the tapes. Yeah, man. What contacted you in his final words?
I think the sadness of, I really loved your comic, but when I got older, the other kids said that G.I. Joe was a kiddie book. The stigma of the toy tie-in. The relentless pull of peer pressure. Strange to me, since I never approached G.I. Joe as a kid book. I tried not to write down, and you've always said that, SW. He wrote up, you know?
He pulled us all up with him. This issue is a perfect example of that. Like you said, he could have punctuated with a big old cheesy, like, final salute and show us what Cobra got up to, bickering as always, and the Joes come together for a little party. But no, he decided to give us this very somber tale. And as a 9-year-old, I really appreciated that. This book was hugely influential to me. It gave G.I. Joe, these playthings of mine, such enormous weight and gravitas. Like, I took a lot from this book. It was, as I say, my 5th or 6th G.I. Joe comic book, and left a huge impression.
I'm so glad that we get to hear from Larry at the end, aren't you?
Man.
That would have been an absolute crime if there was nothing from him.
It's a wonder to see his insight at this point. It's like sitting at the end of this period, knowing now what comes afterwards. You know, that he would be allowed to decades later continue his run, but just seeing, like, as far as he knew it at that point, like, this was it. There's a purity to his epilogue that is just such a nice, like, punctuation to the whole journey that G.I. Joe had been to that point.
Yeah, and it's
anyone
clearly...
I'm glad this is one of your favorite parts of the book, because it absolutely is a must-read for anyone who has this issue to hand.
Well, it is part of the issue. You finish the last panel, and you need to just go straight into this. I can imagine if you were reading it back in the day, you would have been hoovering up this, looking for, probably a little bit angry and looking for reasons. And in fairness, the reasons were actually all around you. You know, you yourself may have been buying less of the toys. You could have been, I'd fallen off the comic. Like, all of the signs were there. And I do love how he mentions aging out, because, look, everything that's good ends. Like, it's not necessarily a bad thing that it ended. I often, like, looking back, different IP, but the wilderness years of, like, Star Wars, in hindsight, are some of my most, like, favorite memories of being a fan of that IP. When you're
Absolutely.
when you're not being rammed, like, with marketed to, and just merch is coming out of anywhere. It's like, no, you've got to put the work in to enjoy this. And you start getting headcanon, and that's where, you know, you can really start, like, using your imagination.
Well,
So
it really fucked us for the prequel and sequel era, because, like, how can that stuff ever live up to our headcanon?
yeah. Well, I would
Clone
like to
Wars
talk.
was that? What the
I
hell?
would like to. I've got some notes here. It's just called the Wilderness Years, and I'd like to talk about the gap. You know, there was a 16-year hiatus before ARA continued in 2010, and it all started with issue 155.5, which was a free comic book day thing, and then it all started again. But 16 years of nothing. And the toy line went at a similar time in 1994. The animated series had been cancelled, a couple of years prior, like 92 or something. So really, when you finish reading this book, it's not just the book. It's like everything. It's the whole IP is cooked and done. So it is quite monumentous. It's not just like, oh, this comic's ending. It's like, oh, no, this thing I love is ending. What do I do now? What did you do, S-Jubs?
Well, did you, like me, think that GI Joe as a toy property would be evergreen, like Lego, Barbie, Hot Wheels?
Yeah, so I was how old was I? I was 13. What I'm trying to say is I was still getting high-ticket toys in 1994. I'm just, you know, they would have been on the shelves for a little bit longer than that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if when Chief came round that I took that to mean that there was no more toy play, because I was still fully Joed up then. Yeah, what about yourself?
Well, look, it came as a shock to me when GI Joe started drying up from supermarket pegs. I was like,
it's so interesting for you, because
this is my favorite toy. What am I going to buy now?
Your journey is beginning in somewhat in like the 1994. So that's really interesting. But you didn't, toy shops were not stocking it. So that's so difficult for you back then.
Well, I had to move on. I moved squarely on to Toy Biz 5-inch 9 POA X-Men figures. That was kind of what caught me after GI Joe stopped being a thing. Stayed with the superhero stuff for a while after that. I mean, it was the heyday of the mutants and the Batman.
I don't want to. I don't want to sort of scare anyone, but I think there's a lot to be said for being into something that is no longer producing content or merch or things like that. And it's actually quite freeing, I have to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes
list to what you need to collect.
Sometimes I do wish that all of the things that we sat around and talked about in the sixth form common room, film, you know, all of these things, like, will they ever do Aliens versus Predator? Will Batman and Superman ever appear in a movie? You know, there's very few examples where we pretty much got everything that we used to talk about. And they've almost all been absolute guff. And the moral of the story is that you don't need to have everything. Like, talking about that stuff and filling in the blanks yourself is actually so much more joyous. And I wish that Star Wars just ended in 1983, because my God, it would be genuinely so cool to talk about it now. And it's actually quite boring to talk about it now. It's just so swollen and it's just become this different thing. And do I think like that with GI Joe? I guess I do and I don't. I don't know. Where are you at with it? You'll always have these, won't you? You'll always have the original 155 and Sunbow. And if you don't want to be into new stuff, then don't be into it, I guess.
Yeah. I think in my heart of hearts, I want to have a hard deck of like 1994. Those are the only toys that are allowed in this room.
Yeah. That's your hard
purity
deck. Top
and
Gun.
having the closed list of collecting, as I like to call it. Like there's nothing beyond that.
Yes.
The waters are not muddy. Everything's very clear as to what is allowed and what is off the table. And that's not to say there weren't great toys produced thereafter, but like really for just the fact that like everything has such great synergy and feels right together and accompanies each other so well and complements each other so well, I can happily just throw the rest of Joe-dom in the bin. Don't need it. Just like a Star Wars movie post 83.
Talk to me about...
Not even the special edition. You can keep that crap.
Talk to me about 2010 and the return. Do you remember that being announced? And was that something that you were absolutely jonesing for and just so excited that Larry was coming back? And it's like, oh my God, we're getting issue 156. Because I don't have any memories of that, and I don't think me and Chief had like drifted. So Chief just told me that after the fact, but that must have been huge, or was it not? I don't know. Was GI Joe so old then? It was actually quite a small announcement, but it must have been exciting.
I attended Free Comic Book Day, went to my local and picked up 155.5.
That's exciting.
It was a pretty shitty issue.
Oh no! So it's almost like,
it was Cobra Commander having a dream about taking the capital, and then he wakes up.
But you're 16 years older. That's what.
Yes.
It's
Look,
you know.
You also need to take into context that if you were in the trenches of GI Joe at the time, this wasn't the only return of Larry Hama. He had already done work with Devil's Due on the GI Joe Splinter title called Front Lines. He'd done his sort of like what happened immediately thereafter, issue 155. So that had already been covered.
Yeah.
There was also those bench press books that were potentially going to use Larry Hama. It came to nothing. But like these announcements that had happened intermittently throughout that period.
Wasn't there a Todd McFarlane special missions that came out like the month after 155?
GI Joe Special, which was it
got redrawn or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the death of Cobra Commander. You know, when he gets shot through the heart by old Fred 7. That was something that McFarlane took a crack at. It wasn't right. And looking at it now, it's stylized, but no more stylized than something Frank Springer would have done, or Tony Salmons.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you don't want it too stylized,
which is hilarious. He holds up issue 155 with on the cover, it's the editorial team who are responsible for the cover. It was Tom DeFalco and let me get the name of the.
I thought Tom you'd DeFalco, have some. Sorry,
Mike Lackey and Tom DeFalco.
I thought that you would have very specific feelings on the characters on the cover, and who you'd want to be making an appearance.
I'd love to have Stalker in that outfit in 3 3/4 inch scale. Unfortunately, they didn't do one like that.
I should know this, but I don't. There's no variants of this, is there?
No, I don't think so. Why? Are you talking about newsstand versus direct
No, I'm
edition?
talking about actually different covers. There isn't. I know that there's not.
No.
I'm just saying that if this was now, there'd be like 50 covers of this.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think it did. I don't think variant covers was a thing in classic Marvel.
No.
No.
Well, I think it was just starting to come in because I
Maybe.
definitely around this time hopped on to a new X-Men issue 1 and that had a bunch of covers.
No, that's where the rot started.
Yeah. But when you look at the cover, it does look like it's part of a much bigger painting, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it looks cropped in.
I just
because we've got
wonder...
half of Tommy.
How do we see the original art, S-Jubs? There could be other players in there. There's no one, is there? There's no one's kind of foot or anyone that we can ascertain who that is.
What? The guys with their backs to us?
I just feel like if you zoomed out, there's bloody loads more Joes stood there.
Yeah, quite possibly. Maybe this is a crop in, which feels like there's wasted art.
Look,
Maybe
at
not.
least
I
we
don't
got
know.
Shipwreck. You know, at least we got Shipwreck in there.
AKA bench press. Look at that. Jeepers.
Oh, you feel like you
right,
don't want that version of Snake Eyes on the last cover, though, do you? But it's not. But as you said, this cover is for this actual issue. It's not like a nostalgic, we're ending, here's Snake Eyes version 2. Although they have put Quick Kick in there, which is weird. But yeah.
I mean, Footloose, if this is indeed Footloose, is wearing not a camo shirt. This is like a camo, it's like, I don't know, gym gear. You know, the sort of wicking fabric.
I tell you, Matt, the art is a little
Super
bit
skin
funky.
tight.
It is a little
It
bit
is.
funky, S-Jubs. Stalker there.
And we've got an opening with the Long Range Recon Patrol team, and everyone's like,
Yeah, that stuff's wild. That's great.
they're ultra wired. You know, they're moving through enemy territory basically. But Snake Eyes with his machine gun has it slung over his shoulders. That seems a little bit like too at rest. You know, like if he's needing to keep the gun at the ready, surely you wouldn't have it, you know, in that cool pose with your hands draped over it.
It's Nam,
seems a little
dude.
bit-
That's how you walked.
What when you know you could be exposed
Haven't you
to
seen
a
Platoon?
firefight. Yeah, of course, but like when you're in country and you're moving behind enemy territory, and
Barnes!
there could be, you know, NVA around the corner.
Yeah.
as it turns out, there was.
No, dude. I reckon that's bang on.
Yeah,
I reckon you know... Yeah.
and he's the first person to open fire, so he was able to like unsheath that hog pretty quick.
It's heavy. It's heavy.
It is.
There's
Yeah.
some of the...
Interesting to think that Snake Eyes was the animal mother, like the guy with the M60 in the squad. Like he was
Yeah, do you-
Repeater, or he was Rock and Roll in that instance. He gets the big gun.
I feel like Snake Eyes' eyes are magnified with those big goggles. I wonder if he's got like bifocals there.
Which
This
goggles?
version of
On the
Snake
cover?
Eyes... No. When he's like
Oh yeah,
in the
doing
pit.
Yeah, using a torch.
Yeah, I like these
Well-
I like all these pages because that's all we kind of get of the Joes milling around really, and then it's straight into the letters. When you are reading Snake Eyes' letter, are you way more in the kind of headspace of Larry is talking to me here, or do you get yourself into the Snake Eyes character and you're like, no, this is how Snake Eyes sounds? Because I very much read it quite disconnected from the fact that it's Snake Eyes.
Larry put so much into Snake Eyes, all the good stuff that he perhaps would have inserted into other comic book characters in his career. Like
Yeah.
Snake Eyes is his baby more than anyone else. So I'd like to think
You think
the
it's
voices
already blurred?
No, I think the voice. Yeah. The voices are one and the same. When
Yes.
Snake Eyes speaks for the first time, at length. He's uttered words before, like scarlet, but he is expressing himself fully and eloquently. We get to get a glimpse of this guy's like very intelligent mind. He's not just a badass ninja psycho killer. He's thoughtful and reflective, and has had a hard run of years, and he's very thoughtfully and delicately unpacking these concepts. And it's absolutely Larry taking social responsibility for sending guys off to be in the military, and it's all happened before our very eyes. I think this is Larry. Larry is Snake Eyes.
Yeah, for sure. You said it.
Talking to the reader.
Boy, you said it, Chewy. I got queasy with the Burns unit stuff. I got over that quick and didn't look back at those panels because that is so savage. And this is that's pretty visceral as well.
Let's punch you up. Yes, poor old Dickie Saperstein.
Yeah.
Stepping on a mine. Yeah, look, say what you want about 90s art and Phil Gozier, but, the chops on some of the Nam stuff is frighteningly good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look, Nam is... Well, actually, I think it's 1994, but I always do that thing when I think of an album that came out like 30 years ago and think, that's the same distance of when they were writing this to like Vietnam. Relatively close history.
30 years. Just 35 years. These guys would have been in Nam. So
yeah,
there would have been old soldiers for sure, the Joes who served in Nam. I mean, they would have all been Larry's age, so maybe mid-40s.
What more can we say about 155? You have to look at it in isolation.
Lovely surprise waiting for me on the letters page, the final letters page of GI Joe.
Yeah,
A-Raw.
Let's do it.
Marvel. And that's the fact that a guy who I now regard as a friend through GI Joe, who I actually met in person when we were both in Washington, a fella called Magnus, wrote in to the book in 155 before 155, and his letter was published.
That is joy. Wow, to have your letter in the final encapsulated.
Yeah.
Or to have your letter in any of the original run.
Yeah.
Is incredible.
That is
Ultra Magnus.
Bragging right. Ultra Magnus, good old Magnus Laglo. Now, this is before he moved to the United States, I presume, because this letter is addressed from Oslo in Norway.
Wow, that is such a claim to fame.
Yeah. I know. Shortly after discovering this, I immediately texted him and said, dude, you never told me this. Or if you did tell me this, how could I have forgotten that you are on the final letters page for G.I. Joe? Very cool.
You were in a letters page recently going on about
celebrated issue.
A Norgahide babe.
Dude, I wrote in very whimsically, and the editor...
And that's the one.
He treated it very whimsically, but really, I'm quite keen on there being some South African representation in G.I. Joe, be it bad or good. Just give us one, please, Larry, please.
I think we can make that happen for US Jubs.
Because the more I think about them, and the longer I spend in this hobby, the more I am greeted with stories of people gravitating to a character for no other reason than the fact that they were born in the same state as them.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, do you have any affinity for, like, Big Ben?
Not actually, no, but I do have an affinity for the Action Force roster.
Team. Yes, I was about to say. So, because they all had birthplaces that had been shifted, was there anyone in the Action Force? I mean, can you recall a file card where you were like, I lived next county over from this chap?
Jeez. A county over. No, but now I'm going to be up all night looking at file cards and counties.
Well, I'll take it, but the original Palitoy card for Roadblock sets his birthplace to French Congo. So there's an African member of Action Force. Then they
I'm going to have to research this now. I'm going to have to. Is there anything from Dorset? There can't be. There so isn't.
There could be. I mean, if you
There
were a
could
Welshman,
be.
Long Range is from Cardiff.
God, this is actually starting to ring bells now. Did I have an affinity with anyone?
Flint is from Lincoln.
Look, I designed a character. I designed Vice.
Very
Vice. And
Your Steel Brigade?
They wrote back to me and they were like, the Action Force Club has not, received enough participants. We're shutting it down. I was like, oh, crap.
Was this to get your very own... What was the Action Force equivalent of Steel Brigade? Is it the Special Force?
They were going to give... I'm trying to think what... So I designed the character and wrote the file card for Vice. But what I'm trying to ascertain is, what was I expecting back? I don't know. I certainly don't think I was expecting like an O-ring fig to come back, but maybe I don't know.
Might have been. I lost one of my G2 Transformers, a little orange robot called Zap. So I wrote into Newport Gwent, which was Hasbro UK's headquarters at the time, saying, please could you send me a replacement Zap? Like, dumb kid.
Yeah. Wow.
When I found a Steel Brigade, like, order form in the back of a Transformers book from 1987, and this is like in 1994, I sent that in to Hasbro US, sent it to Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Like, if this is no longer available, please send me whatever, X, Y, or Z.
Did you send off any Action Force points?
No, I didn't know how that worked. It was
No.
such a mystery to me that things were like,
did it
send
work?
cash and flag points. Like, what? Does that mean I have to cut up my boxes?
I know. That was a problem.
That is a
Cutting up
crime.
your boxes.
Well, I've encountered card backs that have the flag point or star point surgically removed with a scalpel. Like, you just cut deep enough to get you don't actually cut through the cardboard.
Yeah, wow.
One layer off and send that off.
Jeez. Quickly, what do you have the book? Do you have 155?
I do. It is so ragged, but
Is
it is
it?
mine. My original
when
copy
did you...
from CNA.
Oh, it's that original one. That's really nice. Wow.
Water damaged when the rain poured through the ceiling.
Yeah.
But still got it. And
look,
that
it's
wicked cool advertisement on the inside cover with like a little cardboard insert.
Yeah.
You got that?
Got that. But I was gonna say, I thought you were talking about this whispering is for gutless weasels. This
Yes.
It's like an early form of text messaging. Apparently, it didn't. I did a little bit of research. It didn't really work. It was an absolute disaster.
Well, think about it.
Infrared.
I think it's sending text via infrared. It must have been very
But
short
I thought it was
messages.
by Casio, but it says it's by Sega. I think Casio did something that was the same. Because
Did
when I
you
was
ever have-
researching the toy landscape, it kept coming up with this Casio thing.
Show us the advertisement just for anyone watching the YouTube presentation. I used to wonder what the hell this was. Basically, a way of communicating to someone noiselessly through a classroom. If you both had this little electronic device, you could send each other little emoji-style pictures, a little bit of text, and it was all done with infrared beams, which reminds me of an innovation that came a little bit later with cell phones. Do you remember playing like Snake on a pair of Nokias?
Yeah.
And the one had sort of the IR transmitter, and you'd have to aim it to the other person's IR transmitter.
Yeah. Snake. That was a great game.
You could break if someone walked past, it would interrupt the beam, which would interrupt the game.
Yeah, infrared. That is basic. I mean, if you break that, then it's over. So yeah. What?
My TV remote still uses infrared. Bzzz.
You
Switching
say
off
something, and I've got it to hand.
now. Beautiful.
Oh, this is beautiful. Look at it. Can't do that with my Apple TV.
Snapple.
So look, here we are. We have discussed issue 155. Seminal issue, a pricey issue. Are we?
Thanks, Jim.
Low print run. Obviously, I should have Googled something, but yeah, they didn't make many of these, and that is why it fetches a fair old penny. And I tell you what, when they're minty, I've seen them, upper echelons of £200. And then some people are obviously slabbing them. Every year these are disappearing. So thank you so much, Jim, for sending me this, because it's massively appreciated. And I think £50 was a bargain in this landscape. So yeah.
Good man.
There we go. Yeah, you're right. We are ticking off some hot topic issues.
Where does Chase go next?
The last year of this show is going to be guff.
Dregs.
No, there are no dregs. The thing is, that's the great thing. There's joy in every single issue of this run.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Special missions 26 and 27.
Oh, is that with Sauron, the big pterodactyl, or?
If I'm remembering it correctly. Look, there will always be merit to an issue, and even if it is guff, I think the quality of this conversation will never be guff. In fact, I'm dying to talk about a less than stellar issue. So what's you got for me next week, Ben? Stick around.
I already know. I already know what it's going to be, but we've got to see if the postman delivers it. Okay, look, I think we've said all we can say about This Is It, the final issue of GI Joe. If you want to hear more from me, at BenFlyingRetro on Instagram, or my podcast on Substack, People Who Play, also got a new Instagram show in the works. That's going to be exciting. What's going on with the flagship show, S-Jubs? You're spending more time on 1985. I did the vehicles show. That was great. And you're going to do a vehicle show part 2.
Yes, we have to. We left the USS Flag.
I love long form content. Three
really
episodes.
Well, if you're listening to this, that episode will be available already.
Okay,
if you haven't listened to it already. So,
what a trilogy! 3 hours.
Expect some hot takes, particularly on the USS Flag, and not from me. Let me just spoil it already. Like, I did not expect when we recorded this morning the words that came out of my man's mouth. So it's
Well, my opinions on it. I can't really get past the fact that it's more mythical than a toy that I can relate to in any way. So it's weird. For me, it would be like talking about something that's like King Arthur. Is it real? Is it not? Like, I've never seen one. It was not in our world. I didn't know anyone that had it. It was, yeah.
Surely you don't have to think too hard to tap into some of the play potential. Having GI Joe's aircraft carrier.
Yeah, it's off the charts. My relationship with the Flag is GI Joburg, really, and like all the content that you made about it, and that's my journey with it, to be fair.
You have a sweet ass Sky Striker hanging above your head, buddy.
Yeah.
Imagine landing it on the USS Flag deck.
Yeah,
it's that moment alone.
The sheer gall of them to make that toy is remarkable, because it doesn't really make any sense. I'm sure that cost a lot to make, and it was just it feels like it was one of those things. They did it because they could, and yeah, it's a historic toy.
Golden Hour, the Flag, Harold Faltermeyer's immortal Top Gun theme playing. Segueing into Danger Zone and having your Sky Strikers taking off and landing.
But S-Jubs, I want you to populate that deck. I want that deck. I want to see figs. I don't just want a stark, empty Flag. I want stuff going on. There's so much play and stories that you can have on that deck, other than the takeoff and landing of the Sky Striker. Trust me.
pretty crowded pretty quickly, and you don't have to look far to find what other people do practically with the flag in their collections, because it becomes a table, and you literally have it so crowded that not a single vehicle can move. So yes, for what little real estate you have, by the time you've got it replete with maybe even 3 aircraft, I'd like to keep a little bit of air between them. Like, the box audaciously has 6 Sky Strikers on it. You cannot fit 6 Sky Strikers on the toy. You'd be lucky to get 3, posed semi-realistically. So yeah, a Sky Striker, a Dragonfly, and maybe a Shark. That looks pretty good.
I bet it does. And I mean, I'm just jonesing thinking about all of the maintenance play I could have had. Oh, the stories!
Engine covers for days.
Airtight, get that locked down. Okay, barbecue. My 2 boys on the flag. No, actually, look, hot take. I would, if I had the choice. I'm a tactical battle platform kind of guy. I think, or kind of kid. Again, it's the action force. It's the UK-ness of the having that in the North Sea or somewhere in the Channel. I just love that thing.
Is there a area of the TTBP that is your absolute favorite? Can you isolate one node?
That was great.
One compartment.
No, because I never was lucky enough to own it. I had a friend that had it, and again, I, as an adult, fell in love with it through your PlayMotion film. Was that the which one was that? Atlantis
Factor Part 1.
Part 1. Oh my God. It's just joyous. I think that was so early on in discovering you guys, but just the opening and the deploying it as well, like that. Oh my days. And then you do all the stuff that I love. There's just setting up. There's jobs. There's stuff happening. It's just joyous. I was like, oh, who are these guys that play like I do?
Nice.
Yeah, but then look, hey, action, the action starts after that, soon after. But yeah, so I couldn't get into the weeds of it, but yeah.
Well,
where's yours? Where is yours?
I think we might line up, and I'm not the only one who says this about the TTBP. There's a walkway that runs underneath the landing pad that gives you access between the armory and the sort of the command tower.
Oh.
Like, the fact that there's this walkway that runs underneath, like, it's like a secret passage.
Yes.
I love that.
That's so good.
Smart design. You don't have to walk around. You can go. Like, it feels interior for a base that is very much like roofless, and very much exposed. That is like a little crawl space almost. But figures can fully stand up under there. Yeah.
Yeah, they can have big chats.
Yeah, you can have a little smoke break under there. The commanding officer can't see you, so kind of out of the way.
Yes, I love that.
Shipwreck would hang out down there a whole lot. Shenanigans.
Yeah, well, look, speaking of shenanigans, I've got to have some shenanigans at the gym. So I've got to go.
I have questions about your running challenge. This isn't the time to get into that, but...
Do you? You got questions? Right.
Well, shit, dude. I mean, like, have you... What is... Okay, let's do one. What is the weirdest time of day you've ever been like, oh, fuck, I've got to do this thing? Like,
the weirdest one was pre-flying to Tokyo. I had to go at 1 minute past midnight.
That's past the cutoff.
No, as in I'd been for a run that day.
Okay.
And then I had to wait till we got to a new day, go for a run, then come back, go to bed, and then get up at 3 to go to Heathrow Airport so that when I landed, I hadn't missed because of the time difference and stuff. That was pretty weird. But I've never ever had that moment where I've like, oh, I've forgotten. It's so ingrained in my being that is impossible that would happen.
I'm sure
Unless
there've been strong temptations to the contrary when you've been like, sorry guys, I can't.
I think it's
I gotta
more
run.
that. Do you know what, man? The tough ones have been maybe there's been like 10 days over the 460 odd that I've done where, you know, maybe like your mental health is just in the toilet for whatever reason. Like everyone has bad days.
For sure.
And, but ironically.
But running instant elation.
Exactly. Endorphins released.
Yeah.
I had food poisoning once and threw up in a bush. You know, you get ill once a year at least, don't you? You get ill for a few days, and that's when it's difficult.
When you are in the medieval land of the U of the K, don't you get sick a little bit more than that?
I think running is really good for your immune system, so I don't get sick.
Right.
Touch wood too much, but that's when you know your
every time my
family...
old parents go to visit Mark, they get very ill.
Oh, really?
My dad believes that it's seeped into the timbers of England, like these medieval bugs, man.
Wow,
Black Plague, it's still there.
It's just difficult when you are bedridden. You know, you're so ill that you're in bed, and you get out and you go and do a 4-mile run. You know, your family they're not thrilled with that, to be fair. But
so what are you training to their chest?
That's a handful of times. Most days it's joyous. So today will be a full body workout.
Yeah,
because I haven't been
age, we aren't isolating anymore. We're just picking things up, putting things down.
But I feel good. I feel great. 43, but I feel strong. And you know, I found exercise late in life, S-Jubs. Too late, but it's like my favorite thing. I just love it.
Hey man. Don't lose sight
Apart
of the goal.
from GI Joe. I love GI Joe more.
Don't lose sight of the goal. Quick kick torso.
Yes! God damn it, you can see his ribs! Right, I gotta go. I literally have to go. But we'll see everyone
to you.
next week. Next week. Okay. Laters. Yo, Joe!
Yo, Joe!